Hello, everyone. If you're a repeat listener, thank you so much for returning to the show. And if you're new, thanks so much for finding us. Today I have a guest, Denise Mange. She has a business called PetPrana, and I am so excited to have her here with us today. Denise is a certified dog trainer and pet intuitive. After a decade of working at some of the most prestigious advertising agencies in New York City, Denise left Madison Avenue to work with pets and their humans, eventually creating her own mindful pet lifestyle brand, PetPrana. Combining traditional training techniques with energetic considerations of pet guardianship, Denise's work highlights how everyday interactions with our pets have the power to transform us. Her proprietary process, Translating Beyond Behavior, provides a roadmap to how your pet's behaviors can give you specific insight into the transformation that is ready to take place, including which habits, beliefs, and patterns to release so that you and your pet can vibe higher. Think of it as self-help for pets' sake. Through her company, PetPrana, Denise offers best-in-show pet training classes, one-of-a-kind courses on energetic aspects of pet guardianship, remote animal communication sessions, and free resources. Her articles have been featured in publications spanning from pet guardianship to conscious living. She has been interviewed on numerous radio shows and podcasts, has sat on expert panels, and has been a featured speaker on keynote stages. Denise received her BS from Boston University, her dog trainer certification from Animal Behavior College, and is a certified intuitive energy reader through top experts in the field. PetPrana offers intuitive pet readings, dog training, and mindful pet marketing services that honor the bond between pets and their humans. Listen to Denise today, and I think you'll find a lot of information, both about her and her life and her business, but also about the remarkable bond of animals and humans and the life we share. Please welcome Denise with me today. Thank you. Hello, Denise. Welcome to the show, and thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I just love the conversations and the discussions that you have. So I'm excited for us to actually engage and talk about, a purposeful life.
I am too. And I love everything you do, and I want to jump right into it. You and I have had a couple of brief contacts conversationally about how we both come from a corporate background, and we're both intuitive. And I am curious whether you were consistently using your intuitive side in the corporate world before you went into forming your own business.
Yeah. So my experience in the corporate world was advertising.
Mm-hmm.
So right out of college, I graduated in communications, got a job even before graduation working at ad agencies in New York City. And man alive, you cannot find a more intuitive industry than advertising. It turned out to be the perfect job to prepare for the work that we'll talk about later today. Because advertising is all about understanding the symbolism of shapes and colors, really tapping into people's motivations, unmet needs, even when they can't quite explain them. And then within advertising, I was an account person. So I was the liaison between the client and the creative team. And so reading a room became a means of survival and really thriving in that industry. So I had to read the room and see, what was the appropriate time to tell the client that we were going to be $200,000 above budget. I had to kind of read the room and see what my creative team was thinking and when the best time would be to tell them that we're working the weekend again. So there was a lot of not only understanding symbolism, which is something that's been with me my entire life, but really using that intuition to tap into how people were feeling. Were they saying what they were meaning? Or if the client's like, yeah, this is a great campaign, you could really kind of feel into it and be like, interesting. There's actually one story of when I did not read the room, and it is so funny. We had this one client, and he kept asking us for, I want a free TV commercial. And we're like, we can't give you a free TV commercial. There's so much going on. And so our creative team somehow, we had just recorded a big national spot for them. And my creative team, the geniuses that they are, decided that they were going to cobble together a storyboard and with Christmas holiday spot for them. And we're like, oh my God. Decided to do was fly into his office, surprise him during one of his team meetings. They convinced me to wear an elf hat. I'm not one to do costumes, but I was like, all right, we're doing this. And we brought a blow up board of this amazing 15-second. Oh my gosh, we thought it was going to be a party. He was so angry with us. And so then we're sitting there getting a verbal lashing, wearing elf hats. And so we're slowly like taking it off. Great example of how in advertising you really do need to read the room and know what you're walking into. And I think a lot of us are intuitive like that. We credit animals at being really. Any of us can walk into a room and just know, have people been arguing? Have people, is there tension in the room? So all of us are intuitive in that way. But in advertising, it was a helpful tool for sure.
Yeah, and you had honed it. You said that you were always aware of symbols and intuition in that way. Did you grow up knowing that was let me back up. I agree. We're all intuitive. I think that we all have various levels of comfort and awareness of our ability. Were you always aware and comfortable with your ability?
So I grew up in Brazil, which was a really interesting place to grow up, because in Brazil we're really in tune with energy, with a lot of the rituals and the deities. That almost got baked into the Catholicism of the national religion, really, the Catholicism. So for me, it's interesting because I grew up in Brazil. My dad's Brazilian, but my mom's from Oklahoma. So cut to Southern Baptist. And so growing up in that mix was really interesting. But in Brazil, they're so open to symbolism. There's a lot of ritual. So for me, it was always a rich part of my cultural experience. And by the time I was 17, I was already certified in Reiki. So the symbolism of the chakras, for the work that I do. And then beyond that, I think we all have natural tendencies. I always, knew things. I just was very clear, clairgnostic, I guess they call it. And even in school, I excelled at comparative literature. Give me a paragraph and ask me to dissect it and find the alliteration, the symbolism. That was my jam. So that has always been the way that I approach my intuition, is through these kind of signs and symbols and the lexicon that we create with the universe. So that's how, when I'm working with my clients, my pet parents, I always tell them, start creating a lexicon with the universe, whatever it is, assign the symbolism and let them kind of bring that in. So for me, it's a little bit of a game. And I've always had a little bit of that skill. So growing up in Brazil, where it's not taboo at all, people knew that I knew things, that I saw things, and it was just part of the daily experience.
Yeah. So it was fostered and allowed and encouraged all simultaneously.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's wonderful. So, okay, moving on. We have so much to cover. I want to then ask, with that successful history of corporate work, when and how and why did you decide that that was no longer your fulfilling path?
So, as anybody who works in advertising will attest, I was in the category for 10 years and working on several different accounts, several different agencies, global accounts. So, the hours were grueling. It was, a lot of all-nighters. Sometimes you're there at 6 a.m. for a conference call with Japan, and you leave at 12 p.m. at night because you had a conference call with Europe. So it was really taxing from a physical standpoint. And I was always really good in advertising. So it was tough because I kept getting rewarded. I kept getting knocked up. I knew it was something I was good at. And the moment where it finally caught up to me, number one, thyroid, right? I had a propensity for thyroid issues. And when you get no sleep and you have a lot of stress, it flares up. So physically, it became very taxing. And then I remember I was at my final ad agency and I was working on a new business pitch. And so part of the new business pitch, you kind of get the in the morning. And, I heard the president of the agency be like, well, I guess I'm not seeing my kids, for the next few days. And she was saying how they would draw pictures of her in airplanes and that she never got to spend that time. And the aha moment dawned on me. I was like, man, it doesn't matter how high you get up in the organization, you're never going to have that work-life balance. And for me, that was the moment I decided I don't want to chase the carrot anymore. I'm tired. My body's fighting back. What's the next step? And I always loved animals. I was always very connected to animals, even though growing up, I wasn't allowed to have pets, if you'll believe it.
Interesting.
Right? So I would go to like the garden, I would get like roly-polies and caterpillars, and I'd bring those in as my pets. You've got to make do. Mm-hmm. And so I figured, I love animals. I'm in New York City. I worked on PetPrana as one of my accounts, and I love talking about pets and the relationship and everything about our animal companions. So I figured, you know what? I'm going to open a doggy daycare. And if I'm going to do that, since I've never had a dog of my own, I really need to learn about dog behavior. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I decided I was going to look into dog training. And then once I did the program and I started working with pets and their humans as part of the practicum hours, I was like, nope, forget the daycare. This is what I love, watching that relationship blossom, finding the collaboration, and just seeing the fruits of, even a couple tips here or there, just seeing the pet parents be like, wow, this just renewed my faith in my relationship and in what I can do. And then it started evolving to seeing them blossom in their lives more broadly even. So they'd start saying, Denise, you're like a dog trainer, but you're also a life coach because everything you talk to me about with my dog, I use it with my boss at work and I'm so much more confident and people are noticing this because dog training and working with our pets is all about fostering our authentic energy and learning to match our energy with what we're saying and what we're intending. So the way that it all kind of came together and became so much more than just working with animals, which I was craving, is amazing.
Yeah, in the intro, I just read the way that you described your business in your formal intro. But as I read it, there's so much more that you can say about it because, as I personally interpret it, our animals are mirrors. And to me, they're also guides. I don't think there's anything more pure love than our animal companions. And how we treat them is a gift. They offer a gift to us. How we treat them is everything.
I love that.
It can be a lesson or it can be a reward. So what do you find in your work in terms of how you then go on with people? Because I could see possibly that you might even want to expand your business to the next stage of working with people. Do you have anything in mind?
Yeah. So it's really interesting because, leave it to the advertising girl. I left advertising. I'm like, okay, I'm doing dog training and I start my business. And my name's Denise. I'm in New York City and I do training. So of course, the name of my business was Denise Mange Dog Training NYC. So it flourishes. I'm working with animal companions, and all of a sudden I start getting these insights about what's going on with the people, right? I'm opening back up to that intuition. I sit down to start a session, and then the dogs already are bringing forth a dropping in the house. What are the dynamics? So next thing I know, after a couple years of the traditional dog training, I started incorporating the notion of energy, and I started studying animal communication almost by fluke. Because I had shut it down. I had shut my intuition down a little bit when I was younger, just because I started seeing things, that were a little shocking to me. And back then we didn't have people to really explain it to us. So as much as my mom in particular tried to explain it, there was a lot of like, no, that's your imagination. And then it just felt like a scary dream when you saw things.
Right.
So cool. Because my nephews now, who are, under the age of 6, one of them's in particular is very intuitive, and I can explain to him now, like, what's going on. So it's cool how times change even within a generation.
What a gift. Yeah.
Right. It's so, and I love that my sister like allows me that freedom. She's like, all right, he needs to talk. Go hang out with him. So it's really quite neat. Yeah. It's precious. It's really special. So I started with that Denise NYC dog training, and then it evolved into incorporating the notion of energy and breath work and doing like doggy yoga. And then I had the big idea to move to Los Angeles, and all of a sudden NYC doesn't work anymore. Dog training isn't quite it. So I'm trying to figure out, what's the also by this point I was doing a lot of readings, and it's really neat because different animal communicators get different kinds of information. Some get, I like this ball better than that one. Some are medical intuitives who get like, okay, the spine's misaligned, or they need this kind of medication or physical support. What I always have gotten from day one is the animal companions bringing in energetic patterns going on in their humans' lives and what needs to kind of shift around it. So whether it's issues of a lack of grounding, or maybe relationships with their maternal figures in their life, or overgiving, like it's always been about the human. Because, to your point, as you mentioned before, our animal companions mirror us. So if they are experiencing separation anxiety, for example, oftentimes more than not, it's linked to issues in their human of the second chakra, which are the universal themes of not balancing my needs versus other needs, that feeling of, loss, that it's either they're here or they're gone. So it's quite interesting how their behavior really parallels themes going on in our lives more broadly. And what I found is just working traditionally in the training doesn't resolve the issue until we've looked at the energy going on in the human's life as well. So it's really that holistic approach to shifting your pet's behavior so that we too shift and grow. It's also, we can vibe higher alongside each other. It's, what I like to talk about is self-help for pet's sake, because when we vibe higher, so can they. So it really was this really interesting evolution from Denise Mange Dog Training NYC to PetPrana, which does have aspects of traditional dog training. It has energetic guardianship courses that really deals with what's going on in the human's life and how it's translating and trickling down to the pets. And then even beyond that, given my marketing background, I got invited by so many clients to help them build their own, whether pet business or mindful business, because, you can take the girl out of advertising, but you can't take the advertising out of the girl. So I also do consulting with the notion that when we step into our purpose work and we feel more fulfilled, our animal companions benefit from that as well. So what started out as dog training really evolved to a bigger service to the pet parents.
Yeah. And, your creativity just is everywhere. So whether you call it your advertising background or just a huge part of you, I could see very clearly how your marketing consulting came into play, because everywhere on your website, there's something ultimate, just completely charming. Namaste and for pet's sake. And it's just so imbued with love and charm that you shine through it. So to help others do that would just be a tremendous service. So I can see why and how that happened.
Well, thank you. I do love a good pun. I'm a little hokey that way, but and other people sparkle and shine and step into what they love. It's just such a gift to be able to help them that way.
Mhm.
So I just love how, working with pets is translated to really becoming a partner in the pet parent's life too.
Well, and that to me sounds very unique because I'm familiar with, quite a few intuitive readers, but none that get the reading from the animal on the energetics of the pet parent. That's very unique and from anything that I've ever heard.
Yeah, and one thing that I'm so grateful for how this unfolded, and I'm not even, I can't take credit because I couldn't dream taking the steps that I did to get where I am today. It always was by fluke or by accident or by invitation. Somebody was like, hey, can you help with this? I'm like, okay, yeah. And then someone else. But it's really neat that I've gotten the experience of the traditional dog training and then the animal communication and the marketing, because there's a lot of dog trainers, there's a lot of animal communicators, but there aren't many who bring that together. So what I'm finding is this is really a new vanguard in how we start approaching the pet industry, right? Whether it's through training, wellness, would come from human baby trends. So, organic food started with, you want to feed your baby organic food. Then it translated to you want to feed your pet organic food. And so we've really been entrenched in this wonderful movement of conscious parenting, mindful parenting, of how we deal with our human children is really trickling down into the pets. And we're ready for that discussion now.
Well, I agree with you. I do think you're being a little too modest because it takes you saying yes to the opportunities along the way and being able to discern the right opportunities. And so I would say that you absolutely deserve the credit for doing that and for the ownership of that. Um,
It's a collaboration for sure. Thank you for saying that. Yeah.
I understand. When you say it in terms of the conscious pet parenting and all, I do think that it is that new vanguard, as you said. That word is perfect
Mhm.
because we are in a new place in the world in lots of different
Mhm.
ways, increasingly so. And I'm always looking for good news. And this is an example of good news. How wonderful it is that we're able to present a new model of something that has been done for many years. We've had animals and pets in our lives for many years, but how wonderful that we can do it in a new way that's deeper, richer, better. And as I say that, my puppy just groaned in agreement.
I heard that.
Did you hear her?
Amen, sister, right? I
So
love that. Yeah, it was so sweet.
she's very
But
communicative.
I love, yes, get your bark on, girl. But I like that you say that, and it's neat because especially in this day and age with everything that's going on in our homes or to the energy, to have that discussion about how energy affects them, affects their animal companions, and they're actually seeking out that kind of information. Whereas before, we might had to have educated them about energy, how we feel energy. Most pet parents are empaths, and then we cycle energy through our pets, and they pick up on our emotions, we pick up on theirs. Now it's palpable. People feel that, even people who didn't previously feel that. So there's this openness and this willingness to have the conversation about energy, how it affects them and their animal companions. So it's really quite a treat to connect with other pet professionals who ascribe to this idea and help them bring that message to life, because it is a nebulous message. It takes a little bit of crafting and explaining to talk about energy and pets. So it's great that we have the opportunity to bring the message in a fresh way, but we have to be clear and pragmatic about it so that everybody can nod their head. In the spiritual community or mindful community, sometimes we get a bit too nebulous in how we discuss things.
Agreed. And in general, I think the language is important to the
Yes.
audience. Um,
Hmm.
Now, you're a spokesperson in the pet community and industry, aren't you, for
Hmm.
this message?
Yeah.
And so I would think that terminology and language is really essential in order to get the message heard accurately. Is that what you find?
Absolutely. So when I started this whole journey, it definitely took a little bit of calibration to find the right language. When I started this journey, the language was very niche, very much geared towards mindful spiritual community. And what I found is then the message got lost to more of the mainstream audience. So I adjust my messaging and ramp up the energetic, ramp it down depending on the audience. It can be something as simple as, our energy affects our animal companions. When we are sad, our animal picks up on that. When we're happy and excited, they come along for the ride as well. I explain it to anywhere from to 3-year-olds that I do training with. I'm like, you're a superhero. Watch, jump up, get really excited. And the dog does the same. I'm like, now get down and blow out a birthday candle. They go, and then the dog gets down. So there's so many different ways to explain energy and how it affects. So I've done everything conscious living with our pets, where we talk about chakras, limiting beliefs. We even talk about, galactic consciousness and all sorts of things affecting our animal companions. But I've also done very mainstream things where it's about, being an authentic leader and finding our voice and saying what we mean. So there's a lot of different ways to serve up the information. And that's where reading the room comes into play. Whether it's doing a speech or doing a training session, you look for those cues about how open they are and how deep they want to go. Because we never also want to project too much on someone. We don't want to dump our views or, push them too hard. We want to meet people where they are.
Exactly. I am so much on the same page with you on that. I think we match the language and the audience and present information in a way that's heard to serve the ultimate goal. Yeah. What is out of everything that you do, which is a lot of different things, what is your favorite?
That's such a good question. I think the favorite becomes the one thing I'm focusing at the moment, because the way that I receive information is really online about, healing with chakras and how our chakras relate to our animal companions' behaviors and what it's saying about our life. That's my moment. I think it's really the ability on behalf of animals. I get to do something that I never thought I would be able to do. I've always had this love for animals, and I've always wanted to stand up for them and speak about them, but I'm not one of those people who's into rescue or getting really militant about what should happen or not. My role here on Earth, I truly believe, is to plant those seeds of love, compassion, and understanding between humans and animals, because it starts between humans and animals, and then it ripples out to humans, humans to our planet. It's just watching those moments of connection, whether it's through dog training, online courses that I provide, my membership community. That's what I'm so excited and gets me out of bed every day.
Mm-hmm. Now, I was going to ask you, and I don't want to forget, so I'm going to do it now. You have extensive courses online. Were those something that you put online while the pandemic hit us all and you wanted to offer in that format? Or was it an offering that you did virtually from the beginning? How did that come about?
It was from the beginning. One thing that I think our mindful and spiritual community has done really well is providing online forums, right? Because within our communities, we might not be able to connect with like-minded people. So when I left advertising in, I think it was 2010, and I started wow, okay, I have some free time. I'm interested in all this stuff. Cool. I started listening to podcasts. And then, being able to connect that way online, and then learning that each of these speakers offer amazing courses online and there's ways to run them online. I've been doing that from day one, just because my content is very unique out there. And we have, a global path. Our soul path is, Brazil, the United States, Australia, Europe, Canada, it's the benefit of what we do. So we've been doing this forever. And then the pandemic hit, and average, people who weren't part of that community started realizing, oh, I can do services online, I can have meetings online. So this is already something that I had, and we were all very well poised to deal with the connectivity issues with the pandemic because of it.
Excellent. Yeah. I saw online you were doing some, and I didn't really investigate to the full detail. You were doing some sort of jewelry for pets.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit? It was beautiful.
Oh, well, thank you. I love beautifying our pets' lives because they bring so much beauty to ours. But it's also where fashion meets function, right? Because what I started realizing as I was working with pet parents is I kind of developed a roadmap of different pet behaviors and how they're linked to the human chakras. And by the way, we have 7 major chakras. Our animal companions have the same 7 major chakras with the same universal themes. So I started realizing, especially when it came to like on-leash reactivity or barking on leash or being fearful on leash, in New York City, that was 90% of the work I was doing with our animal companions. So in understanding that, the first chakra is a red chakra, that's the color associated with it. And it has to do with the universal themes around grounding, security, scarcity versus abundance, mine versus yours. Just to kind of have that extra grounding. And if they felt stressed, they could remember to kind of hold on to that crystal, and it would just remind them to ground, to breathe into it, to center into that first chakra and create that calm for our animal companion who's picking up on it. And so with that, it kind of evolved into, well, if it's benefiting the human, wouldn't it be great if the pet had a pendant that had the color associated with the behavior they're working on? So I have pet pendants in a rainbow of colors, and each of them are designed to help with specific behavioral issues that they might be dealing with.
That is so cool. So are the pendants for the pets part of the, are they gemstones also? Are they like citrine?
They are. They're crystals. Yeah.
Crystals,
So,
okay.
yeah. And, one thing that's really cool is with the separation anxiety, that's such a big one. And crystals are hard drives, in nature, which is so cool. So I always tell pet parents, if you're buying the pet pendant for separation anxiety, wear it for a few days, let it kind of adjust to your energy and fuse it with your energy, and then put it on your pet so that way they can feel your energy within that pendant. So there's so many fun ways to wear it. And then I have a lot of pet parents who are like, I wear it too, by the way, because
It just is so clever, and it seems so smart. And I don't want to demean it by saying obvious, but it's like, of course you would want this. I mean, why not? Everybody needs this,
Yeah, and for me, what I found really neat is that it's really important to combine traditional with energetic. So, I always talk to pet parents. I'm like, listen, this is not going to solve your problem in of itself. This is one of the tools to add within the formula. So, in that way, I'm very cautious about putting anything out that seems to be a magic bullet or a quick fix, because I think that's one of the downsides of the spiritual community. Sometimes we think, well, I looked at it in the energy, so it will resolve itself as soon as I visualize a better outcome. And yes, that's half of the equation, but the other half is putting the time in, doing the effort, doing things in the practical aspects as well that need to be managed. So I like to look at everything from, a general standpoint.
Right. It is a whole system. Exactly. You also do, I'm thinking of all the various aspects of what you do that are so interesting that I want to bring up. You do the name escapes me, but you're in a helicopter. Is it a rescue, a pet rescue? Did I lose you for a minute? I noticed our connection might have frozen.
One too, because you might have, but I heard you. You're asking about the pet rescue.
Yes.
So this was something that I really had to negotiate with myself, my team, and hold my boundaries. Because what happened is I connected on Instagram, as many people do, with a pilot. And he has a corporate job, but on weekends he flies his plane and he flies rescue pets out of shelters in LA, which is very populated, to more rural areas in like Washington and Oregon, where they need pets that are to be adopted. They don't have, as many dogs that need homes. So that was kind of his work, and he had been doing it for a while. And he's like, I want to formalize this to create a legacy. I don't want to do this as a pet project anymore. He's like, I love what you do with your pet lifestyle brand. Do you do consulting? And I was like, well, as a matter of fact, I do. And so we created this whole organization, which I'm so proud to be a part of. We call it Pet Rescue Pilots. And really, it's the notion that we can, as one of the pieces within the rescue puzzle, we can bring more pets covered over more distance in shorter time, which means we can find more. So we created a whole branding element to it. We created taglines, logos, the messaging. We got him on major network interviews. We got him, all of our funding was via social media. And we raised tens of thousands within the first couple of months. It was just this phenomenal organization to be able to shape and uplift, because people wanted to be a part of it. Our official launch was during the beginning of the pandemic. And we thought, oh my gosh, we are in trouble. Nobody's going to donate. And what we found is people want to donate even more, because they know that the animals do so much for us, especially in these moments where we're stressed. So it's one of those branding dream jobs that you get to do, working with something that I love. And one of my non-negotiables, I said, I will do this. I am not a rescue person. I don't want to have anything having to do with creating fear. So my non-negotiable is we're not going to go into detail about their backstory, but we will show the result of helping animals and how they can have a beautiful life. They can find a loving home and what it does for the pets and the humans. And I was so lucky because the pilot was right on board. He's like, I'm with you on that. And so, right after we kind of shook hands on that, I went on my dogs and cats from LA to Washington. And boy, oh boy, was that an experience, highs and lows, and rescue is tough. My hat's off to people who do that work. But that was my contribution, was being able to do the branding and make sure that we were communicating everything in a positive light.
What a gift. What a contribution. Because I, like you, you didn't say you avoid it. I avoid the negative backstories.
Yes.
I will get involved in the positive end stories and bringing forward animals to a future. Going backwards doesn't do me or them any good. I can do more good by going forward. So when you explained it in the way that you did, of how you put forward that business, what a contribution and a gift, because I think so often going backwards is the old style and the old paradigm. So to hear that it was done going forward is a way that I think we could copy as a new way of building a brand.
And so well received. That's what I really loved. Nobody was asking what's the backstory, and we got so many people contributing, and we raised tens of thousands of dollars within a couple months, but donating $5. So it wasn't that, one person came in and dropped a $2,000 check. It was, we would say, give us $5 Fridays. So the sheer amount of people, and they would say, thank you for these images. It's so great to see them smiling. And I'm like you, I'm an empath. So if I zone in on anything, upsetting, it sticks with me. It's just, I avoid it altogether. So it was really, a conversation I had to have with him up front and say, we're not doing any of that. And it's interesting because part of the inspiration for that is, as I do more and more animal communication sessions, more and more pet parents are, contacting me because they got a rescue and they want to know the backstory. And in those sessions, the animals more times than not say, we don't want to talk about the past. We're here moving forward toward the tomorrow. Of course, there'll be, some vestiges, maybe, behaviorally that we have to work through, but let's focus on the tomorrow. And one thing that a lot of pet parents fall into is, you're on the road, you're taking your dog for a walk, you stop and you're talking to another pet parent and they go, "Oh, is it a rescue?" "Why, yes, it is." And then you go into the backstory. The animals are like, "Please stop doing that. Stop telling that story. It just brings up energy that doesn't need to happen." So, one guidance that I got from one of the pets during, you'd be like, "No, this is mine. It has my eyes. Can't you see?" So you kind of avoid that whole notion of, adopted or not. You can add humor to change that story and how it goes.
Yeah, yeah. And isn't it interesting that animals, and again, humor comes into it, but that old joke of how animals start to reflect the look of their owners, their pet parents, and all. I do think that's true. Life is life. We start to model who we connect with. It's
That's
interesting.
exactly it. Yeah, and I think sometimes it's even less of the physical resemblance, although undeniably it's there. Our energy starts enmeshing.
Mhm.
When we work with our animal companions and we live with them, we almost create this third entity, which is the relationship which floats around us. So even if you can't pinpoint why they look like their, pet or pet parent, it's the energy. It's that symbiotic enmeshed. We're projecting the same thing, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I love that you pick up on that.
Yeah, yeah, and actually, I've done a bit of study with brain cognizance and all, and the brain waves actually go into an entrainment, and so we're working on the same rhythm when that happens. It's quite fun. Um,
Oh,
so anyway, so what personal trait are you now? This might be a tough one for you to answer because you seem so modest,
okay.
but I want you to really try. What personal trait are you most proud of?
I think, especially in the pet industry, I love people as much as I love the animals. There's a lot of trouble, or they don't want to deal with the people's baggage.
Mhm.
I love people. I love animals. I really just enjoy talking about the connection. And I think that's really a point of difference for me when I'm working with some of my pet parents, because we have to be incredibly empathic and empathetic.
Mhm.
So, there's not person someone being like, "Yeah, no, it's quick. You just do it like this. Why aren't you doing it like this?" Like, I really like talking to people, understanding what motivates them, how they're feeling about their animal companions. And I'm so grateful that they're so genuine with me. I've had a lot of pet parents who are like, "I just don't think my dog likes me." And it's coming from this place and this energy. And I'm like, "Oh, honey, no, let's talk about that." So I love that I'm able to bring that to the table, and it's part of the work that feels really rewarding to me as well. That and being able to present things with professionalism, because I think in our industry, both energetic and mindful and spiritual, as well as the pet industry, professionalism isn't really top of the list. So I always bring, a certain level of polish and follow
Mhm.
up and professionalism, because I want people to know they're in good hands.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's again, I mentioned your website several times. That polish and professionalism and freshness, the creativity. I mean, it's obvious you have fun with the professionalism and polish.
Yeah.
It's genuine. It's just
Yeah.
you're a gift to the industry and to the world.
Aw.
You truly are. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I mean, the dream is one day I can create a platform in life. It would be the Mr. Rogers for the pet world, where we get together. I don't have all the answers, but we get together and we just talk about, different topics and what's going on and how are we feeling about them, and just make everybody feel kind of heard and understood and supported. That's kind of the dream, the vision that we're holding on to here.
Ah, and that answers my one of a part of my next question. I was going to ask what's next for you. That's the ultimate. Do you have a stepping stone to that dream?
Mhm. So as I built, it's really interesting because, I think back to where I was with Denise Mange, Dog Training NYC, to PetPrana and how it all kind of came together. The second PetPrana solidified as a name. And at the moment when the name came to me, I didn't even know what prana was. I was like, I had to look it up. And I was like, from a marketing standpoint, this is the dumbest name. No one's going to know how to spell it. But it was almost like this entity in of itself that I was just going to champion and usher through. So I trusted it. And so part of Pet Prana is traditional training. It's the online courses and education. Next, I have a manuscript, and I would really like to get the book published about mindful approach to pet guardianship. I think that's going to be a big one. And then creating a platform, and I've started this a bit, where I bring in other people to talk about whether it's pet wellness, pet training, or just more kind of mindful, conscious living, just to inspire those conversations and have that community where you feel supported and you're learning, and everything's bespoke and curated so that it's coming from the most loving place possible. No judgment, no, territorial aspects to the work that we're doing, just really kind of an open forum.
Yeah. Oh, I just love it. Just love it. So before we end, I want to see if there's anything that I haven't asked that you'd like to share, that you'd like to add.
I would like to add, because I get this question a lot, do I benefit from this philosophy if I don't have a pet currently? And I'll tell you, I don't have a pet right now. I'm a dog trainer without a dog.
Oh, you said you had a dog snoozing near you this morning.
I do. He's Nash. He's one of my little furry clients, and he's staying with me while his mom travels, and it's uncanny. Every time I have a really interesting, exciting podcast, he comes and he stays over, like, randomly. Like, the mom called me. She's like, hey, can you take him tomorrow? I was like, sure. So Nash is kind of my little guru. He's snoozing or I'd lift him up. He's cute as can be. But, for a lot of us don't have animal companions at this moment, but a lot of us either had a pet that we felt really connected with, or we just love animals in general, or we just have that tender, empathic heart that a lot of animals tend to nurture and speak to. So even if you don't have a pet, we can do a few things to change the energy around pet guardianship. And, we talked earlier about words and how they matter. And one thing that I do, a small choice I make is I don't use the word pet owner. I use the word pet parent or pet guardian, because I think that really helps shift the energy into this new vanguard, that we're here to respect each other. We're here to learn from each other. We're here to care for each other. No one's owning anyone. So even doing things like shifting that language is a really helpful thing you can do as you're, helping us bring forward this new energy around pets.
That's excellent. Thank you. And it takes vigilance, because even though I believe and think in the same way, I find myself saying owner once in a while. So it takes that constant vigilance. Yeah. So thank you. That's beautiful.
Cool thing is if it slips out, we're like, ooh, what was that? Yep, the old. So we get to reaffirm it. And, I think also a lot of pet businesses, even the bigger ones, are doing a better job at portraying the relationship. I think society is really changing and progressing. And especially when I worked on Purina, I was tasked, and this was probably 10 years ago now, if not more, I was tasked to bring the same notion of pet parenting that we have in the United States to Latin America, where animals were still, out at night, farm animals, they never came into the house. And to see even from that time to how even in Latin America it's progressed, where animals and pets really are part of the family, has been super rewarding to witness. So those shifts are happening, and we can definitely contribute with the language we use, what brands we choose to support, cruelty-free versus not, all that stuff.
So there's so much. And in the show notes, I will have all the links to everything, your social media, which is so wonderful, and your website, which has so many resources. You can get lost for hours just going through everything. And it's very helpful, too. It's not
Oh,
just,
good.
yeah, it is. You have resources and your classes. Everything on there is very useful and helpful and interesting and fun and creative. So I encourage everybody to go there. And I can't thank you enough. It's just been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you for having me and for having these discussions, not only with me, but with so many other people. Because I'll tell you, as an entrepreneur and someone who doesn't have a partner, I wear all the hats. It's so cool to hear other people and how they're living their life and how they're running their businesses. So it's really inspiring. Thank you for doing what you do.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And until next time, stay well and be well.